Hi, fellow YouTubers and garage journalers. Welcome to, I guess this is going to be my first food for thought, tools for thought episode. Today I want to talk about universal joints and a little bit about swivel sockets, but primarily universal joints. Over the years, browsing through Garage Journal web board, I notice there's tons of threads on, hundreds of threads on ratchets, extensions, you name it. But there's not much mention when it comes to universal joints. Talking about this type here, universal joints. Yeah, occasionally we hear people talking about swivel sockets, but we're mostly talking about impact swivel sockets. Not much mention about chrome swivel sockets. Yeah, there's mention about it, but when it comes down to universal joints, seems to be a love-hate type of relationship. So what I found, well, personally speaking from experience, I myself have experienced that love-hate relationship when these universal joints are brand new. They operate quite well, but as they start to age, they all have the symptom of the floppy joint. And what do we do typically? What most people do, like I did too, is we bring out that electrical tape and we wrap our universal joint with electrical tape. Yes, this stuff. Doesn't have to be red. But yeah, we wrap this stuff around a universal joint to make our floppy joint become more rigid, so to speak. Less floppy. So why am I talking about universal joints if we tend to hate universal joints? Well, I want to talk about these types of universal joints. Not really talked about. Obviously, if you're a Japanese tool fan, you probably have heard about these. So just glancing at them, yeah, they look different. But if you can agree that they are universal joints, you might just pass it up as that. Nothing more than that. But to fully understand the benefits of these particular types of universal joints, I think I'm going to have to talk about our standard universal joints that we've all been accustomed to over the decades. But if you care not to listen to all that stuff, you can just fast forward and jump to the end, near the end. So, talking about, I guess, a little bit of background history stuff. Universal joints, yes, they've been around for decades. Comes in various drive sizes, shapes, forms, length. But standard, typical universal joint pretty much resembles this design, made out of primarily, I guess that's 5 pieces. This particular one is a brand called Vulcan. This was manufactured by J.H. Williams. They owned this company at one point, Vulcan. So this basic design is shared, well, Williams and Vulcan use the same design. So yeah, they articulate up to 90 degrees. Some people say universal joints are great because you can use them at an extreme angle, but seriously, you cannot operate a universal joint at a 90 degree. That's definitely not an asset to me. Because universal joints work smoothly at not such an acute angle. the lesser the better. Anyhow, just want to talk about the style. This we all know. Sorry, this is a swivel socket, a universal joint. This one differs in that the joint, instead of using roll pin, this one uses a fastener. It's threaded on this end. So I guess the good part about it, this is a Mac. It is serviceable. There's a spring washer on this side, which sort of provides the tension on the joints. So it is field repairable. You could adjust that spring washer to spread it so that it provides more tension for the end result that you can get your floppy universal joint to act like it was, closer to what it acted like when it was new. But that's temporary. Sooner or later you're going to have to service it again, or electrical tape if you must. But we all hate electrical tape, especially when you working in oily environments. You get oil and electrical tape and all that gunk and nasty stuff. So I found this many years ago. I thought, hey, that's going to alleviate the floppy joint. So I bought it out of curiosity. Never actually used it though. Yeah, sure, it prevents it from becoming floppy. The spring does the job, but hey, sometimes universal joints, you want to be able to actually produce or set an angle and get to your fastener. So this essentially static position is always going to be straight. You can't set an angle and go to your fastener. So that is a bit of a downfall. Here's this one here, it's from Triangle. This one is spring loaded. Kind of hard to capture that, but there's a spring loaded mechanism there. Sort of similar idea to keep this thing, see it's sprung. The idea is to basically, same as this, what is this called? The Sidewinder. Similar idea. This one is better, I guess, for clearance. The spring is definitely in the way. So again, like the Sidewinder, you got the issue of not being able to set an angle. So then I discovered about 10 years ago now, this brand, Nepros. Their universal joint is very different from what we've all been accustomed to seeing. If you notice this, sorry, I don't have a universal joint, but it's the same mechanism. Just to illustrate, the reason why this is different is because the pivot points. You got them. So right here, the pivot points are equal. I'm going to rotate it. So the Nipros pivot points are on the same axis, while all typical universal joints, the pivot points are offset of each other. So what? Well, that produces a very smooth operating universal joint. The big problem with these, especially when they get loose, is that, well, never mind the getting loose portion, but just the working angle, there's no reason to have universal joint flex, whatever, 85 degrees or more. You can't operate the universal joint at such acute angles. So why do they design it like that? So this is where this Japanese company, Nepros, came in, and they basically designed this from the ground up. If there is no need to operate it at such acute angles. Basically, they figured out that the most common application where universal joint is used, those angles don't exceed 30 degrees, according to their study. So this has a total range of 60 degrees. So it's, yeah, some might say that might be a con, because maybe you might have situations where you want more angle. But using these for many years, well, maybe not this particular one, I'll show you later, that quarter-inch drive one I've been using for many years. I haven't run into too many situations where I thought, oh, I need more angle than what this guy gives me. So benefits are twofold: smooth operation, and because it's limited in range, you don't get that floppy joint syndrome that we've all come to hate. So, great benefit. Not to mention the compactness. If we can just compare, so that's a 12 mil, 12 mil, 12 mil, 12 mil swivel sockets. So that's a Nepros top tool and a snap-on swivel socket. So as you can see, if you're, most oftentimes you want a compact stature for using swivel sockets. So that is a benefit. Now, so this limited angle kind of mimics or resembles impact swivel joints or impact swivel sockets, because these are also limited to, I'm going to say, roughly 60 degree range of motion. That's a no name, whatever. Here's this snap-on universal joint, impact rated. So yeah, you can use these. They're sprung design, so they maintain their angle, so they're good. But however, as you can probably tell, they got issues with clearance, especially in confined spaces that we see in modern day engine bays. So you're not going to be using something like this for an engine bay, but this is a 3/8 drive, 13 mil. Yeah, so, oh, here's another example. It's a snap-on one right there, 3/8 drive as well. So yeah, just the girth of that is likely going to get in your way in certain situations. Not saying these are obsolete or anything like that. Of course, they're still useful in many areas where clearance is not an issue. So, now there's another one that I haven't really talked about. I don't have an example, so I'm just going to bring this magazine. It's this type here. Well, this is really the same thing as impact type. It's a pinned ball joint style. So some companies, such as this one, is called Dean, they offer the ball joint style. There's also this one here. So that's the same Dean that I was talking about earlier. And there's a Koken as well, ball joint style. The Koken doesn't actually make this anymore. They've moved on to an even better type, which I'm going to introduce you to very soon. So the benefit of that ball joint type is that this is sprung. You can set your angle. It's not going to go floppy after extensive use, as long as there's nothing wrong with that spring. So the spring I'm talking to is this spring. So that you're able to, well, maybe not this type, but this type. You can maintain an angle. So there are benefits for that, but the downfall is that all your torsional, all the torque is applied to that pin. So in the long run, durability wise, like is the case in impact grade ones, they are known to shatter. So durability wise, they may not be the best. So here comes this Koken Zeal. Koken, this design is actually patented. So this is why you don't see this from anybody else. So if you take a look at that, it's also a ball joint style, but it's not pinned. It's so your torsional loads are spread at numerous contact points. It's not just the pin, like this one, impact grade. Okay, so this is a 3/8. Obviously, you can see the difference in diameter there. Much shallower as well. So in confined workspaces, this is the bee's knees, they say. So let's see if I can capture that. So you can see that there's a spring in there. That's what keeps the constant tension on there. So you can set your angle. This ball joint is super smooth. So for many years, just going to move over to a 1/4" joint here, 1/4" drive. So for many years I was using the Nipros 1/4" drive universal joint, but I'm going to have to give Koken the upper edge simply because this is a spring-loaded joint, more durable compared to this one, which I've used for like probably 7 years or something like that. Hard usage. If I fit a socket in there, I just noticed that it's not able to hold its angle sometimes. Like right now, I'm not demonstrating it. If I used a larger socket, like a 13 or something like that, I'm not able to maintain that angle. And another thing is that I've started to notice a slight play in the joint. So these universal joints made up of 5 pieces, namely. You get less pieces in this. So, and that spring joint, a spring-loaded ball joint, I foresee it to last a lot longer, durability-wise. Now, I guess the downfall, or one con about the Zeal, this design, is that your range of motion is, I think it was 50 degrees, as opposed to the Nipros one, which is 60 degrees range of motion. Yeah, hasn't really bugged me much. I still like this a lot, and that's the reason why I've purchased 2 of these Koken ones. So, just to kind of show you an up close. So you got the Zeal there, 3/8 drive universal joint, Nepros, 1/4" drive stuff here. It's a Stanley with a typical universal joint. Notice the heights. These are all 10mm sockets. That's a Koken nut grip, made it with the Zeal universal joint, Nipros 10mm, Zeal 10mm socket, and last but not least, a snap-on 10mm swivel socket. So I have this one here. The way I dealt with the floppiness, the floppy syndrome, is I just applied, call this dum dum. It's like sticky residue. So that prevents, that's my way of limiting, well, basically, some people actually use O-rings. They apply O-rings to limit the range of motion so that they don't become floppy. But this is another way of doing it. Having said that, I prefer using these universal joints and made it with an appropriate socket, because that swivel socket, snap-on for example, extremely expensive, but if you pick a universal joint and fit whatever socket you want to, a lot more economical. So what I have back here is, I know this video is getting long, but since I built this anyways, I might as well just illustrate to you the smoothness of, well, maybe even show you the nut grip advantage. So that's a 10 mil nut. So the benefit of this nut grip socket, even if it's non-ferrous metal, stainless or something like that, still you can still insert the fastener in there, like so. There's two balls that keep that thing from falling off. So you can set your angle. Let's just picture this as like an intake manifold somewhere in the engine bay, oil pan gasket, and you need to start your nut on the stud. So I have my angle set here. You're working in a confined area, you have some obstructions, but you can maintain this angle, engage that stud. You can start operating that. So super smooth operation. So you can set your nut there, release, and then if you have another nut, somewhere on your engine bay, you can just, so on and so forth. Speeds up your operation. I think that covers it. So this is a 12 mil. This one happens to have a magnet that I just fitted in there. So this is maybe I should be using this one. So this is a Nipros, super smooth, no binding, no awkward, cumbersome movements. Super nice. Okay, so there we go. So that basically is what I wanted to talk to you about, is these Japanese universal joint designs, which we've never seen before. I'm sure many of you have not seen before. So I think I'd have to give an edge to the Koken ones, just because it has an additional feature that the Nipros doesn't. So they offer it in the three typical drive sizes, this design. You might notice that one's different. That one is from Koken standard lineup. The Koken standard lineup also now has the ball joint style as well. So yeah, I hope that was an informative video for you guys. Oh, by the way, speaking of nut grip, they also offer universal swivel sockets with nut grip feature on it as well. Yeah, I was going to talk about wobble extensions. There's some downfalls to this. as well. Well, you only get a working range of 15 degrees, so sometimes that might not be enough. This one here, you can't even maintain an angle, even though you can get a little bit more than 15 degrees on this design. But yeah, I hope you guys thought that was helpful. And that concludes my Tools for Thought episode. You guys have a good day. Thanks.